For the first time in centuries, the center of global power is shifting. And it's not just between America and China. Today, the world fears the rise of a new giant, India, and the truth is, no one can stop it. Now, when I say that, I don't mean fear in the sense of hostility. I mean respect. I mean recognition. I mean awareness that something big is happening. If you look around the world, from Washington to Beijing, from Moscow to Brussels, everybody is watching India right now, and they are asking themselves one question: how is this going to change the future of the world order? India today is already the 5th largest economy on earth. Not long ago, it was behind Britain, the very country that once ruled over it. But now India has moved ahead, and if growth continues at the current pace, if India can sustain 6 to 7% GDP growth year after year, by 2030 it is expected to become the 3rd largest economy, behind only the United States and China. That is an extraordinary achievement for a nation that was once considered a poor developing country. And let's talk about what is driving this transformation. India's IT and service sector has become the brain of the digital world. When you pick up your phone, when a company in America or Europe needs software, there is a good chance that somebody in Bengaluru, or Hyderabad or Pune is behind that code. Giants like Infosys, Wipro, and Tata Consultancy are leading the way. At the same time, manufacturing is beginning to shift. As costs rise in China, as global companies worry about over-reliance on Beijing, they are looking toward India. Apple is already moving part of its iPhone production to India. Tesla is negotiating to set up a factory. That is not just economics, that is geopolitics. And let's not forget the startups. India now has the 3rd largest startup ecosystem in the world, after the US and China. Every year, new unicorns are born in fintech, edtech, healthcare, and green energy. And behind this is a growing middle class, hundreds of millions of people entering the consumer economy, buying cars, smartphones, homes. Global companies cannot ignore that kind of market. Now, numbers are important, but the real story of India is not just in its GDP, it's in its people. India today is the most populous country on earth, with more than 1.43 billion citizens. But here is the real difference. The median age is just 28 years old. Compare that to China or the United States, where the average age is around 38. In Europe, it's even older. That means while the rest of the world is getting old, India is still young. And that youth is not just in numbers, it's in skills. Every year, India produces more than 1.5 million engineers, doctors, scientists, innovators. By 2030, 1 out of every 4 new workers in the global economy will come from India. Think about that for a moment. A quarter of the world's new workforce from one country. This manpower is also reflected in defense. India has more than 1.4 million active soldiers. It is the 2nd largest standing army in the world. It has nuclear weapons, it has a growing navy that is projecting power into the Indian Ocean. And it has a space program that has landed near the South Pole of the moon, something only a handful of nations have achieved. But let me remind you, power alone doesn't shape the future. Leadership does. Throughout my own journey, I've learned that nations rise and fall not just because of their numbers or their weapons or even their money, but because of the vision of their leaders and the integrity of their people. That is why I put together a book called The Leadership Blueprint. It's not just for presidents or prime ministers. It's for teachers, entrepreneurs, community leaders, anyone who wants to learn how to build vision, communicate with impact, and lead with integrity. Whether you're in Delhi, Washington, or Nairobi, leadership is the one force that can truly change your destiny. Now, let's talk about diplomacy, because this is where India has surprised the world. When you look at India's foreign policy, it doesn't simply align with one bloc. Instead, it balances with the United States. India is a strategic partner. It is part of the Quad, along with Japan and Australia, working to secure the Indo-Pacific and counter China's growing influence. India has signed defense deals with Washington worth billions of dollars. At the same time, India maintains deep ties with Russia. It buys more than 40% of its military hardware from Moscow. And since the Ukraine war, it has become one of the largest buyers of discounted Russian oil. That has helped keep Russia's economy afloat even as Western sanctions tried to isolate it. And then there is China. Relations are tense. There are border clashes along the Himalayas. There is competition for influence in Asia, in Africa, in the Indian Ocean. But at the same time, China is India's second largest trading partner. That is a complicated relationship, rivalry and partnership in the same breath. India also has strong ties with the Gulf states for energy security and with Africa, where it is investing in infrastructure, healthcare, and technology. In many African countries, India is seen as a friendlier alternative to China's Belt and Road projects. On the global stage, India is a leader in the G20, in BRICS, and it has long pushed for a permanent seat on the United Nations Security Council. What this means is simple. India has shown it can talk to Washington, Moscow, and Beijing all in the same week. It can balance competing interests without becoming anyone's puppet. And that is what real strategic independence looks like. Now, if we step back and look at the broader picture, we see comparisons. China for decades was the story of unstoppable growth. But today, China faces a slowing economy, massive debt, a property crisis, and an aging population. Its authoritarian model also faces global pushback. India, by contrast, presents itself as a democratic alternative. Messy at times, noisy at times, but still a democracy with free elections, a vibrant press, and an independent judiciary. That gives India a kind of moral weight that China lacks. The United States is still the largest economy and the most powerful military in the world, but it knows it cannot face the challenges of the 21st century alone. Climate change, terrorism, artificial intelligence, supply chains, these are global issues. And so America sees India as a natural partner, not just to balance China, but to help shape the future. Russia, meanwhile, is struggling. After invading Ukraine, it has faced sanctions, isolation, and battlefield setbacks. And yet, it leans on India as a customer, a friend who will still take its oil, still buy its weapons. That gives India leverage. Africa and the Middle East are also in this equation. Both regions are rich in resources and young populations. Both are becoming battlegrounds of influence between China and India. The Gulf is critical for India's energy, and Africa is where India is investing in trade, education, and technology. But beyond the economy, beyond the manpower, beyond the diplomacy, there are hidden strengths. India has nuclear weapons. It has a space program that is now respected worldwide. Chandrayaan-3 was not just a scientific achievement. It was a statement that India belongs in the club of space powers. India is also a leader in digital technology. The UPI system, a platform for digital payments, processed more than 11 billion transactions in a single month. That is more than any other country on earth. It shows how India can leapfrog old systems and create its own solutions. In energy, India is investing heavily in renewables. It has a target of reaching 450 gigawatts of renewable capacity by 2030. It is one of the biggest investors in solar and wind power. That matters in a world fighting climate change. And then there is soft power. Bollywood films, watched across the globe, yoga practiced in homes from Los Angeles to Tokyo, an Indian diaspora of more than 18 million people, who are not only citizens of other nations, but also leaders, CEOs of Microsoft, Google, IBM, and so many others. So why does the world fear India's rise? It's not fear in the sense of war. It's the recognition that India is not going to follow anyone else's script. The West worries about losing dominance. China worries about a democratic rival rising right next door. India's independence, its refusal to fully align with any one bloc, means that it plays by its own rules. And that makes it unpredictable. It challenges the old structures of power where the United States and China were expected to be the two poles. Instead, we are moving toward a multipolar world, where India will stand as a center of gravity in its own right. The question then is no longer if India will rise. The question is how the world will adapt when it does. Because in the end, the rise of India is not just India's story. It is a story about how billions of people with resilience and determination can reshape the world. And it is a story that teaches us all. If you want to change your destiny, you must learn to lead. That is the lesson. That is the truth. And that is why the world is watching India now.